This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z.
Join us today for a cup of coffee to talk about Chapter 3 in the book of Boba Fett, The Streets of Mos Espa, is our one and only Tom Gross.
Well, hello. It's great to be here talking about the Book of Boba Fett again. Episode 3. I love it.
Yeah. Well, let's start, as we always do, with our letter grades and overall reactions. And as our tradition, naturally, we have not talked about this together at all. So this is going to be the first time. So literally, grab a cup of coffee with us and join us at the table while we talk some Book of Boba Fett. Go ahead, Tom. What'd you think about it, man?
Oh, yeah. Finishing my sip of coffee here. Okay, so the grade that I give this episode, I'm going to go with a B on this one. Okay. I enjoyed it. It was a little slow for me. But there was a lot that happened in this one, but it didn't have quite the impact on me initially as I thought. But that's why we have these conversations, and that's why we talk to each other, because maybe there are just some things that I missed along the way. We had much more in Mos Espa than flashback this time. Just a quick flashback that I'm still kind of processing, to be honest with you. But I'm sure this conversation will help out a lot. So solid B, I enjoyed it, but a little slow for me.
Okay. I think the main challenge with this episode for me is that it wasn't the second one, because I think that second episode was a masterpiece of live action Star Wars.
Oh,
so, but it's not fair to compare that to this. So I won't consciously do that. I really like this one. When I can tell you this too, everyone, when it was done, I didn't want it to be over. I didn't want it to end. It ended perfectly. That's exactly where it should have ended. But I wanted more. So that's great, right? That means you can't wait till the next week. I'm going to give it a B+. It's a little bit higher than you. And so it doesn't reach the narrative heights of the second one. But it's got some interesting, compelling things and some really fun moments too, which is what we're going to talk about. And like we've been doing, I'm not going to break down every single element of that. I'll leave that for everybody online to do in another podcast. But I just want to hit some major themes and major ideas.
Yeah.
The first one is a very interesting intro where we meet someone who's referred to as a water broker. Now, the name of the actor is escaping me, but I love him. He's from, most notably from Office Space. At least that's how I like to remember him. And he's been in a number of things. He's very, very humorous. I should probably look him up before I do these podcasts, I think. But anyway, we learned that he comes in boldly and says, people don't respect you. And, things are chaos in the streets. We need your help. And he finds out there's a gang that has modified their bodies with some droid equipment and I was going to say memorabilia, but it's not memorabilia, but they've droidized themselves. I just coined that term. So there's a lot of interesting things that happen. So let's talk about that conversation up to him meeting the cyber bikers, but we won't talk about that part just yet.
Sure. I felt like there was a lot of similarities to the messenger for the mayor in his delivery. I felt like he was condescending every time he would say, "I'm insulted for you," or whatever the language that he used there.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I don't really feel like that's how you really feel. So I don't know. I feel like Boba Fett wants to lead with respect, but I feel like he's definitely not getting it yet from the people that are in the know, or that he needs to be, to have support, because these water brokers or these business people are the ones that give him tributes. So yeah. And I think one thing that this reveals is that there's a disconnect between Boba Fett and the city, because he comes in and he says the streets are in chaos. And Boba said, first time I've heard of it, which, kind of makes me, in this world of news, is it true? Is it not? It does make me wonder, is this water broker story true? Is the chaos in the city, or is Boba Fett, just out of touch? And so there's a little bit of that question that goes back and forth. But so Boba Fett goes and sees for himself. And the streets are filled with Jawas. There's fire in the garbage cans. And so I don't know if that's normal or not. But one thing I did like about this opening sequence is we get a few more words out of Fennec Shand. I feel like there's more of a relationship between Fennec Shand and Boba Fett. It's not a ton, but I do feel like there's a little bit more. And actually, overall in this episode, I feel like she has more to say. But again, a full-fledged character development with Fennec Shand, not there yet. And maybe not. It's not her show. So, maybe I'm just expecting more out of her. I just really liked her in Mandalorian. I really liked her in Bad Batch. So, I'm not going to be disappointed if we don't get more from her, but boy, would I like to see more from her. So yeah, the water broker, interesting conversations, a Star Wars conversation I feel like I haven't really seen before.
Right. Interesting. I've been trying to look up different information about sort of overall commentary on this particular episode itself. And what I like the idea. I like that Boba Fett is a man of action, where if there's something that's going on, he just, all right, let's go figure it out.
Yeah.
Fennec, suit up, let's go. So they go and they check things out. And we find out when he meets this gang that they are basically being bilked out of their money by this guy who's really hiking up. I think they said that he's charging like a month's worth of water for a week's worth of water. I believe that was it. And Fett's like, wait, what are you talking about? These youngsters, they stand up to him. And I've seen it compare online to like, Alita. I think that's like Alita Battle Angel. Is that the title of a, yeah. What, boy, did Dan do his homework or did he not do his homework? No, I watched the episode several times. No, yeah, it's compared to Alita Battle Angel meets Akira like bike gang. That's what IGN says. That's what I was thinking of. And I think that's an interesting comparison. So these characters are going to become part of Fett's gang, which is fine. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't really have anybody besides those two Gamorrean guards. So he doesn't really have anyone that's working with him, which is part of probably the challenge of him trying to establish who he is. But I find myself, again, sort of scratching my head about where this is going to go. And maybe that's part of the beauty of it. I have a feeling that by the time this thing is all done, Tom, that's going to blow us away with the slow burn to a very powerful reveal. Maybe Fett's kind of playing possum, and just waiting to the right moment to just kind of let it all loose, which I wouldn't be surprised about at all. What I will say, though, I love his style. I absolutely love his style with this water broker, and as well as the gang that he recruits to join him. He says, you want to get paid? You want a job? Join me. He relieves them of their debt, and he treats them with respect. He doesn't talk down to them. He admires the woman's courage and bravery, which I think is very, very cool. So I guess it'll be interesting to see. It's Sophie Thatcher is the actor, and she is from the series Yellow Jackets, which is really, really popular. But other than that, I mean, does this particular aspect of it do a lot for me? No, not really. But again, I reserve the right to wait and see what happens.
I mean, he's really. What I wonder is, I mean, are we witnessing he's kind of building his ethos, where he wants to lead by respect, so he's going to start treating people with respect. I mean, it's a slow burn. You don't gain respect overnight, which is a good lesson to know and understand. And so he's building that. He's going after the people that are disrespecting him, aka the mayor. and maybe even some business people. But even the water broker, after he discovers that he's pilfering, high prices, he says, "How much do they owe you? Here's 500. That's enough.
Yep.
And lower your prices or wages or what, I can't remember his language, but he says, lower your prices, and so he does two things. Number one, the bike gang or the ruffians, the youth, he gives them purpose, and by giving them purpose, takes them off the street so that the water broker is happy. So really he kills two birds with one stone here, gains respect, all sorts of things kind of go on here, even though it takes a little bit of time to stop and think. I mean, that didn't occur to me while I was watching the show, but as we're sitting here and I was listening to you, I was like, okay, lots of things happened here, even though it was not, a shoot 'em up scene.
No. And I really like the fact that he says, I hope you fight as well as you talk. I love that line.
Yes, and I forgot about that line.
Yeah. And they have, who they remind me of, and I haven't seen this comparison yet, but towards the end of the original Marvel Comics Star Wars run of the 80s, which started in the late 70s naturally, there are these, do you know what I'm talking about? There are these cybernetically enhanced humans that fight Luke. Yeah. And the art style is very, very different at the end. But they reminded me of that vibe. I don't know if that is inspired it at all, but it very much reminded me of that, which I thought was really fun. In fact, there are a ton of wonderful Easter eggs that are sprinkled throughout this thing. There's one thing we didn't mention, a Pelemoto sighting. When he's walking through, if you look, when you see all the stormtrooper helmets on pikes, there's a woman, as he's walking in one direction, Pelemoto is walking the other direction with a bunch of the pit droids. So it's got to take place during season 1 of The Mandalorian is my guess. I love that. That was a great touch.
That was great. Yeah.
Did you catch that?
I felt like, well, I didn't see her in the pit droids, but one thing I noted was when we saw them placing those stormtrooper heads on the pikes, that kind of gave me a frame of reference of when is this? Because this is a flashback. And so how many years have passed between the two? Well, now we've got a pretty good idea that, there's not this flashback is really getting close to current Mandalorian events. Meetup.
Right. So I guess one thing is, the Pelemoto scene is during the flashback, which we're transitioning to now. So we see Fett once again in the back to tank.
Yeah.
And a number of things happen. He gets, first of all, there's this glorious scene where he's riding this bantha and he's nodding with a lot of respect to the Tuskens as he's leaving. You see this beautiful shot of him on the Tusken going through the desert, very Lawrence of Arabia, or like lone wolf on his horse sort of thing. We see a conversation with the Pikes, and then we see a very upsetting ending. So where do you want to start on this?
Well, actually, can I start with a question for you that's right before all of this?
Sure.
When he's in the Bacta tank and he looks and he instantly goes back to
Camino.
Camino. So this is not the first time we've seen the ship flying away and young Boba running to the window watching it. What can I ask? What do you make of that at this point? Because I don't know. I have no idea why they're recurring to that scene. Any ideas?
I was going to bring that up, and I even wrote it down, so I'm glad that you did. There's something there, isn't there? I mean, it's the same sequence of him watching Slave One fly away. Well, I guess now it's called Boba Fett's ship, Starship, or whatever. But so I don't know, because this isn't when Jango Fett gets killed by Mace Windu, because they're together.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this happened a lot, or if this is when he first went off and met Count Dooku. I really don't know, but there's something significant about it, and I can't imagine it's just to continue to show stock footage of Daniel Logan when he was a youngster. So there's got to be something to that I'm hoping we'll get to reveal. But as far as I can tell, the footage from this is pretty similar to what we saw in Chapter 2, but it's not an accident, right? There's got to be something about it.
Right. And the only thing I can think is, at this point, it's something to do with his father leaving, but I don't know what it is yet. Okay. Just curious where you stood on that. So
yeah. There's got to be something to it.
Right. So he goes to, and this is where he's in Mos Eisley, right? When he comes in on the bantha and sees
Mos
the
Espa.
oh
Is it?
Mos.
Well, I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay.
I'm assuming everything has been Mos Espa so far.
All right. So he walks in on the bantha and goes and has the meeting with the Pikes and is asking about protection money.
Mm-hmm.
And is claiming it as land of the Tusken Raiders, and they're saying, "Well, we can't do both," and so it was what I took from this is, this is negotiation in it with a new Boba Fett, and so he's going to show them that the Tusken Raiders, this is their land. He's going to go take care of that biker gang that does that swoopy forward and backwards J. I don't know what if there's a name for that logo they're using.
I don't know.
And then you mentioned the really disturbing scene where he goes back to the camp,
Mm-hmm.
and I wondered, this is just logistics here, but I wondered, would he continue when he sees the smoke and realizes the location of the smoke? Would he continue on the slow bantha for that? But then they show in the next scene he's running.
Yeah,
he's dismounted the bantha and he's running to the camp, where the camp has been utterly, destroyed. It's burning.
and when you watch it with the captions, by the way, it
Mhm.
says Boba Fett panting. Like, it's hard to hear because of the music, but he's like out of breath as he's getting up there, which doesn't happen very often with him.
No, interesting. And it was really reminiscent of a couple different scenes for me. The first thing that comes to mind is we've seen something like this before in Tatooine when Luke returns to the Jawas, or no,
Right.
I'm sorry, his homestead. Yeah. And he sees the burned out homestead of Owen, and so I thought of that first, and then it took me to boy, this is going to be rough. I believe it's Attack of the Clones, where Anakin destroys and kills all the Tusken Raiders.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot too.
And just those two things were in my mind as he was walking through the camp, and then they go and he's burning the dead, and he's tossing the weapons in, and the one that really hit me, sort of the gut, was the child's stick that the child has been crafting or carried with him. And it's really rudimentary, but you can tell it's something that he's been working on and pretty proud of. And he tosses it into the fire. And we've talked about this before, that Boba Fett's going through a renaissance, a rebirth of Boba Fett, and to me, this is part of that journey. To have this loss of the people who have taken him in, caught him as a slave. He proves himself. He saves a child. They bring him in. He becomes more than what they probably expected, and make him one of them through all of their rituals. And he goes off to negotiate for them and comes back and they're gone. And so it's one more step in Boba Fett's path that is shaping the Boba Fett that we're seeing in Mos Espa as Lord Fett, or I can never say the word that the D word that they're using to the
it's like daimyo or something.
Daimyo, yeah. And so I think it's a one more step of his journey. And so it's a tragic one, but it helps me to understand why Boba Fett doesn't just shoot that assistant of the mayor. Why doesn't just walk into the mayor's office guns ablaze? Why he walked up to the biker gang and didn't just go crazy on them, and so it's one more thing.
His restraint is incredible. And I think part of the challenge with this, who would want to tell this story? This will be a hard story to tell, because we've filled in our head canons since 1980 what Boba Fett is like, and all you read about is he's the most feared bounty hunter. Sure. And all of that. And now he's showing, I dare I say, even grace. I mean, he certainly doesn't suffer fools. He doesn't let anyone talk. Whatever he does, it's not like a Martin Scorsese gangster thing, right? It's not like that. It's like he really is like a man's man sort of a thing in earning respect, and not necessarily admiration, but certainly respect that becomes a mutual transaction, which I really like. This flashback with the Pikes, I'm glad that they're like they appear like they're going to be the big bad for this series.
Mm-hmm.
And they should be. I mean, we've seen how bad they are in Clone Wars and the Bad Batch and Solo briefly. So they are certainly bad guys that are worth exploring. Just how evil they are, because I'm not entirely sure if it's. I mean, yes, we saw that gang symbol on one of the Tusken tents, but I'm not sure if the Pikes set that up or not, or if they really are just in stand, quote unquote innocent, that are just sort of, we're trying to get through the desert. I mean, they're not innocent at all, but they're really keeping out of that because it's beneath them. They're not interested in getting their hands dirty. And you can tell by the way they dress and the way they construct their homesteads or their temporary quarters as far as that goes. The challenge with me on this Tusken scene is it was a gut punch. It's like you turn around and someone punches you in the stomach. I wasn't expecting it. I really thought we're going to spend more time with the Tuskens, especially after it's almost like a love letter to them in the second chapter. And I was really discouraged. Like, I was actually discouraged. I was certainly bummed, as you're supposed to be. And Mason and I were like, man, that's sad. So I hope this makes sense. But part of me feels a little cheated that I didn't get more of that. Like, I feel like even though I only knew them for an episode in a third, I don't get me wrong, I didn't want to see anybody get destroyed or hurt or injured or even scared. But I feel like we deserve to at least get one or two more nice little moments with them. And then all of a sudden you see like something is happening and they have to defend themselves. But we didn't get any of that. So I feel like it's almost like a morning thing. I don't feel like I almost didn't get closure. I mean, obviously, and maybe, you know what? Maybe that's the genius of Jon Favreau and Robert Rodriguez. He didn't get closure either, so the audience doesn't either. So if that is the plan, that was excellent. That was very well crafted, because I certainly felt that way. Should I have seen Boba Fett cry or be enraged? I don't know. Boba Fett doesn't do that, right? He's never done that. So it was very powerful, very poignant. And it made me feel empty. But again, I think that's the point.
Absolutely. And what I thought was, because I had the same feeling, we just really got to know that the chieftain and the warrior and the child. And what it made me think is, this is the life of a Tusken Raider. Mm-hmm. They are so in the circle of life of Tatooine, they seem to be very disposable, and they are a target, which makes, being a target makes them violent, I suppose. And so, but yeah, it was way too early of an end, but I suspect that that's the life of a Tusken Raider.
And it's so sad. Like, again, how could you not think about the Native Americans, Indians, or other parts of the world where, apartheid is taking place, or just, it's really, like I always say, one of my favorite quotes, fiction is obliged to tell the truth. So it helps us to reveal difficult truths and realities that sometimes people aren't comfortable talking about for whatever reason.
Sure.
And that stands out to me. So the fact that we care as much as we do about these Tuskens is a testament to the storytelling, I would say.
Yeah.
But we don't get a chance to really reflect on anything, because we get a fight scene, buddy, with Black Chrysanthemum that was just explosive. So let's talk about it all the way up to him being captured. I mean, I got a lot to say, but I want to hear what you kind of noticed first.
I mean, I've come to learn that when they do the previews of each episode, that you're really getting a preview. You're not just getting a reminder of what happened in the last episode. They're picking and choosing specific scenes. And we saw in the preview, "Don't sleep lightly," told by one of the twins, Hutts. And boy,
yeah, for
he
sure.
is ripped. he is ripped out of that Bacta tank. I mean, it is full of Bacta when Chrysanthemum opens it up, and then you see Chrysanthemum drag him out of that tank, and he just throws him around. And what's even more impressive in terms of Black Chrysanthemum, or they're just calling him Chrysanthemum. We call him Black Chrysanthemum because we know him from the Aphra and Star Wars story, and that's he carries that title in there. But anyway, Chrysanthemum, what to his credit as a warrior or gladiator, is when Boba Fett gets his gaffy stick and he uses the pointed end and he jabs that into his back. It doesn't slow down Chrysanthemum at all. It, in fact, enrages him more. And that's when he picks him up and he kind of grabs him around the neck and he throws him across the room. And it's about that time that hey, here's the biker gang. Let's see if they can fight as good as they talk. And you know what? They held their own. You know, they had weapons, they had electrified weapons and things like that. And Chrysanthemum took care of them relatively easily, but they certainly gave Boba Fett the moment he needed to get his senses back. And drug his robe on. Down. Yeah, get his robe on. But, you know, it took the battle to the throne room, which is where Fennec Shand became involved. And they unknowingly got Chrysanthemum over the trap door, and she drops him in. And I was like, wow, what a beast to put into. And I just thought about the respect of Chrysanthemum in two ways. Number one, that was an amazing fight that he was, he had the element of surprise, but still he dealt with Boba Fett. He dealt with the biker gang. He deals with, he was about to deal with Fennec Shand. And so they have this amazing warrior in the pit that a legendary creature, the Rancor, lived in. And so I'm like, wow, two I guess supposedly legendary creatures have been held in that pit. And what a great it was a great fight scene. There was a lot of action. We really got to see the kind of beast that Chrysanthemum is. And we got a little preview of what we can expect from the biker gang in terms of supporting Boba Fett.
Yes. Yeah. So when he's first ripped out, like, it was jarring for, again, jarring for the audience, jarring certainly for Boba Fett. And he's ripped out and thrown across the room. And I saw how angry Black Chrysanthemum was. I was like, I honestly was scared for Boba Fett. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, but I was petrified. And I really kept thinking, I hope this fight gets over soon, because no way. And then who wants to be a Gamorrean guard against Black Chrysanthemum? Are you kidding me? They were bacon for him. It was bad news. I felt so bad for them, more than even Fett, who didn't have his armor. He's just sitting there in his swimsuit, basically. And Chrysanthemum is like taking bites out of him and throwing them around, and they're fighting valiantly. It's so cool to me that once the fight is over and Chrysanthemum is trapped, I really like that he says, get him in the back, get him in my back. He says, get him in my back to tank.
Yes.
So that's gotta be a level of intimacy, like, as far as like complete respect and like brotherhood. I thought that speaks very highly about why these guards are going to fight for Boba Fett forever until their dying breath, because of that loyalty, which I thought was really quite moving. But it was really, really, really well choreographed. I kept saying, where's Fennec Shand? Where's Fennec Shand? And look, I'm not a speculation guy, but how could you not think, where the heck was she? Why wasn't she there? Like, that's her whole purpose. So it makes me worry that there's something rocky there. Fett doesn't seem to mind. The next sequence is them, basically eating, and there's this massive feast. And she's like, why don't you just eat? And she's smiling and happy and acting really indifferent. And this is my other challenge with this, is that I still feel like Fennec Shand is being really underused. Like, she is, she's about as much of a character in this as Boba Fett is in The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. Like, just there, but not really doing much. And that stinks because I want to see more of her. And again, I know it's not her story, but she's a part of the story, and we've been sold with her as part of the story. So I hope we get to see her do or say something meaningful. And again, I reserve the right to change this opinion once I've seen everything. But I think it's fair to at least point out, again, critical thinking, intellectual honesty. No one's bashing anything, but it's more like, I think we deserve more Fennec Shand. So where was she? And I hope that it's just, who knows, but it makes me nervous.
My guess was that, she has quarters near the throne room to be on call if someone makes a call. He has his own quarters somewhere. I imagine it up high in that tower, but I assumed that her quarters would be closer to the throne room, just so that she can be instead of him when he's in the back to tank or something like that. That's just where I make it sense in my head, but there could be something to that. I feel like she's just really wanting to live she's wanting to support him as lord of his territory. And so she's just trying to really keep him focused on that, and doesn't want to see him lose that. So she's kind of old school, and making sure he doesn't forget that is where my mind is.
And part of it might be that she's actually enjoying being able to like take a breath, because how much of her life has been, constantly fighting for survival. So she actually gets to take it sometimes, which I think is nice. So who knows? Yeah, let's go ahead and take a quick break. When we return, we will talk about the second half of this episode, including the return of a surprising favorite from Return of the Jedi. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
We are back talking about the second half of Chapter 3 of the Book of Boba Fett. Tom, we find out after Black Chrysanthemum has been captured that the twins have arrived. So we know something is going to happen, right? Things are heating up. He goes outside, and the Hutts have a little confession, and they also are going to offer a gift. They share with us that, you know what, we've been tricked. The mayor has tricked us too, and actually this is all about the Pikes. The territory has already been promised to the Pikes. The Hutts are really quite gregarious. They apologize repeatedly, and then Fett brings Black Chrysanthemum up, who somehow is able to just be held captive by some chains and one guard, which to me tells me, if Chrysanthemum wanted to get out, he'd get out. Like Steve Rogers, if he wanted to take you down, Peter Parker, he would. So I feel like he's just like, well, it's over, whatever. I'm going to move on. So they say, no, he's our tribute to you. Sell him back to the gladiators. No. So there's a lot there, plus the gift itself, which is a Rancor. I want to hear your thoughts, kind of on the twins. So let's just cover the twins first, then we'll get to the Rancor.
They were so Apollo, but you said it right, Gregorius. Gregarious. Thank you. That I thought maybe it wasn't sincere, and that they were just trying to play him. In fact, they talk about that a little bit. Fennec, Shannon, Boba Fett. Do you believe him? Whatever. But they were so apologetic, but the one thing about the Hutts is they haven't been in power for so long by being fools. And so, they play by the rules, kind of like the Mandalorian follows the code. I'm sure that even the Fetts know their place and when to follow the code. And, they even say, we don't want a war, bad for business, And so, they make they don't burn bridges. they even, hey, maybe down the road we'll see each other again. And so they offer Black Chrysanthemum and then the Rancor. And so the two things were, there's really a lot going on here, because you're trying to figure out if the twins are, not the Fetts, the Hutts,
right,
are being sincere, but then they readily give up both of these really legendary, powerful creatures. I was more curious what they would do with Black Chrysanthemum than so much than the Rancor. So I'll talk about that first. I really just sort of, it didn't occur to me, but when Boba Fett said release him, that totally made sense. I figured he would, because one thing that Boba Fett knows, because Boba Fett is this also, is he knows that Black Chrysanthemum is a survivor. Why didn't Black Chrysanthemum break out of the chains and, either run from the Hutts or fight? Because he's a survivor. He knows where he is. He knows what's happening. And so he knows whatever situation he's put in, he'll find a way to deal with it. So Boba Fett honors that. I even like it when he says, no hard feelings. It's just business. Even Black Chrysanthemum is, a raging, Wookiee that's cybernetically enhanced. I'm sure he understood that, being a survivor himself. And so I love it how
he even gives him advice. Don't work for, I don't remember the term he uses.
Oh, yeah.
Take it from me. Maybe he was talking about Darth Vader, by the way.
Could be, yeah. So Chrysanthemum is out of the scene for now. I hope somewhere, someplace, we get to see him again. But he's a wonderful character in the comics. So now
I always liked him in the comics, by the way. And I thought he was cool, but I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, here's a Wookiee, and it's a bounty hunter. And okay, that's sort of a twist on a familiar idea in Star Wars, and people are adding more to the canvas of the Star Wars mythology, and sure, that's fine. But seeing him in this series makes me love him. Like, I'm looking around my office now and looking at all these different Chewbacca things, thinking, I need some Black Chrysanthemum action figures. If you could give me a retro design, I like the old kind of Black Chrysanthemum. Come on, that would be the best.
They would have
really
to give
liked him so much.
Yes, he was great. And now that we have a live action version of him, he definitely deserves to have an action figure. And they're going to have to make the little plastic bubble bigger, because he better be huge.
He's got to be big. He's got to be massive.
He was
great. Yeah, so there's the reveal of your gift. And then they zoom backwards. And you see, like, from the entrance of Jabba's garage door, basically. You see on the right, you see the Hutts and the litter holding them. And on the left, you see a Rancor being wheeled up, but it's tied up and it's got its mouth sealed off and muzzled. And so when it happened, this is another thing with my legendary play-by-play, which seems to be the case with this series, is I say out loud, no way, no way, no way. I was so fired up seeing a Rancor, and I thought, no way, Jabba's palace is going to have another Rancor. Yeah. I was through the moon. And then I see Dana Trio as the actor, because, of course, he does all the Robert Rodriguez stuff. I thought that was terrific. We were very excited about it. We'll talk after this about what happens inside the palace itself. But just seeing a Rancor as a gift, I couldn't have been happier.
It was amazing. I mean, what is Jabba's old palace, Boba Fett's palace? What is it without a Rancor? I mean, that's kind of like, peanut butter and jelly, And so to see it returned and go from a peanut butter sandwich to a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, wow, that's awesome. And I really found it to be kind of sad to see it tied up the way it was on this hovercraft. And it just made me think kind of a zoo animal as it was laying there. But I was thinking, man, a legendary creature and such a humbling, it's not humbling, what is it? Demeaning sort of treatment. But I guess, it's not just going to no one's going to ride it right into the palace. So I guess it's the only way to get a Rancor to go in. It also makes me think of that Bad Batch episode where they do rescue the Rancor, and how, I don't know, it was so unlike the Rancor in Return of the Jedi, which we get a little bit of conversation about that we'll talk about. But it was a great moment. I was really happy to see that, especially in juxtaposition of Black Chrysanthemum, this raging beast that gets away, and then we pull in a legendary creature that is, tied up in that manner. But Boba Fett accepts him.
Yeah. I thought that was great. And again, the fact that he released Black Chrysanthemum and, no hard feelings, don't work for slime balls in essence. And Black Chrysanthemum, who has this wonderful growl, this wonderful, augmented, raspy growl, almost just terrific, delicious, absolutely delicious. Love it, love it. So then we get, before we get to the mayor's major domo chase, we need to talk about when the Rancor is inside. We learn a lot about Rancors. Now, the fact that Rancors are peaceful unless they're threatened or they can train to be violent, I knew about that, and I said it's before because of the Star Wars book, because that's some research I did on Rancors.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing that, happening, which is great to see. Yeah. They're almost like the pit bulls of the Star Wars galaxy. They're can be kind and sweet and even show love. We understand. So they're not just dumb brutes. Sure. There's actually something to them, which is marvelous. Fett wants to learn to ride it, which is hard not to think about Omega when you see that. The classic old video games for sure. But I love the fact, Tom, they're like a baby duckling or something like that. They have its eyes covered so that the first time its eyes are it's uncovered, it can see, it will imprint on whatever it sees. So Boba Fett with the helmet off, that is who he sees. I think there's a lot to unpack there. Take us anywhere you want.
Yeah, I really liked Boba Fett's reaction to the Rancor and how he took to it. All I could think of was the scene earlier in the flashback where he's riding the Bantha, and he has that majestic feel. And I'm assuming the Bantha may be what he's referring to when he says, "I've ridden things 10 times the size of this Rancor."
To me, that was a nod to the Star Wars Holiday Special and the Mythosaur, the cartoon of him riding that Mythosaur.
Oh, yes.
That would be cool if that was it.
That would be even better. But so I really liked his sort of the way he takes to the Rancor and shows affection to it. And, he's scratching the side of it and saying, this is the spot. This is a good spot. And they kick back to a shot to the Rancor trainer, and he does a grin and a little nod to affirm that yes, that's the spot. And it's a different side of Boba Fett that we have not really seen, even in the flashbacks. But the flashbacks, I think, tie into this because of the nature aspect of the Tusken Raiders, their the way they live in the land and all of that. And so this is sort of Boba Fett's what he took from them showing here. I have to say, at the conclusion of the scene, when the droid shows up and says the mayor 20 years, whatever, or 20 days or whatever it was, and Boba Fett leaves, I felt a little betrayed. I don't know. Did I misread the tone of the trainers when he says to the Rancor, "Don't worry, he'll be back," and the Rancor kind of turns its eye toward the camera? Is there mischief there? Or
no, it was pure. It was pure love. No, I think I looked for that very closely the second time, hoping that wasn't the case, and I don't think that at all. I think Dan Trio's character, the new Rancor keeper, pouring out for Maliki, or however you say his name, they are. No, I guess he still exists. I think he's in the Aftermath books, isn't he? The Rancor keeper, isn't he? Mentioned?
Yeah.
I thought
that's
so.
Right. He is.
But no, it's like I get the sense that he's happy that he's found a master that cares for the Rancor and isn't going to treat it for fighting or misuse it or or any kind of animal cruelty. I got the sense there's nothing but mutual respect in that room between those three.
That's good. Because that just left me a little uneasy about that whole scene. But here's what's in my head. This is not a prediction. I'm not expecting this to happen. But that whole time when he says, well, I want to learn to ride this. And he says, that takes a lot of discipline, which we know Boba Fett has. What I thought of was this whole first two episodes. They're like, well, why aren't you being carried in by a, I was like, he's going to ride into Mos Espa on a Rancor.
How's that for respect, baby?
Yeah. Again, I'm sure that's not what's going to happen, but that's what came to mind when he said, I want to ride this. I was like, ride it into the mayor's office you want.
It reminded me of one of those previous video games where you can one of the earlier Battlefronts, I think. Is it Battlefront? Where you can control a Rancor and you can go through Tatooine and smash it.
Oh, I don't remember that.
That was fun. I think that what was that game? That was a game. I need to think about this. Well, so let us know in the CWK Cafe if you know what video game I'm talking about, where you can take over as a Rancor. I can picture the cover, but I can't think of the name of it. Either way, I thought it was a touching scene. I really liked it. Again, the notion of taming the wild beast, but this isn't a wild beast. It wasn't wild. It's just wild by reputation.
Yeah.
It was even depressed, which I thought was like, oh, it makes you feel sad. Right. But there's definitely animal love there, which I really liked. So they go after the mayor. Fennec suit up. Let's go. And she's ready to roll. The mayor's major domo is again extraordinarily condescending. He even almost kind of laughs and mocks Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
And then he runs inside, locks the door. They chase after, and then we get this big chase sequence. To me, there's only one major part of this chase sequence that I really want to talk about, but what do you make of this part?
Well, my first thought was, he's driving Han Solo's.
Yeah. Absolutely. Similar model.
Which I thought was really cool.
Like a later one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
And I like how the biker gang or Boba Fett's new gang has like tripped out motorcycles. The kind of the lead girl has like multiple rear view mirrors or something. I mean, I like that they're all modified, but it's you got to have some sort of a speeder chase at some point. And it just, there are a lot of things in there that just were kind of fun to watch. But I'm curious as to hear what you liked about, or what you wanted to talk about regarding this chase.
So there's really one standout for me. The chase sequence was fine. It was fun.
Okay.
The standout for me is that one of the things that's happening through the traffic in the chase sequence is these two have this image, this big piece of paper that they're walking across the street, and they crash through it. Did you see what that image was?
I did.
It was the Ralph Mcquarrie concept art of Jabba the Hutt's palace. I mean, what a great Easter egg. That really messes with your mind because, is Ralph McQuarrie canon now? I don't think we need to necessarily go that route. But I think it's pretty cool. Like you could easily say a denizen of Tatooine or someone painted or was hired by Jabba to paint this, but it's the Ralph McQuarrie art. What a loving tribute. And did you catch that last week when Fett was building his gaffy stick, that overhang and that unusual sort of outdoor area where they were doing that is very reminiscent of one of Ralph McQuarrie's pieces of art of the Tusken Raiders.
Oh my gosh, I totally missed that. I'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of love. A lot of love for McQuarrie through this, which is terrific. Between that,
that's magnificent,
and Pelemoto and some of the other things. There was one other thing that it was mentioned. Yeah, when he says I've written things much larger, I thought of the holiday special.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are other ones that I'm perhaps missing, but there's some really fun Easter eggs. This whole Boba Fett series has been a really nice parade of Easter eggs, like love letters to Star Wars. Which I really like a lot. And anything else you want to say about the chase sequence?
No, other than everybody has to join me now and going back and rewatching some of these Easter eggs. Those are so cool. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. Well, we find out at the end of the episode that this is the Pikes. The Pikes have shown up, and there's this beautiful sequence where this massive starship lands and the Pikes get off the ship. While the Starcraft was going over Tatooine and was about to land, I just had this feeling in my heart. I love Star Wars. Gosh, do I love Star Wars. I love seeing the ships and the anticipation of who's going down there. There was a part of me that thought, is that the Millennium Falcon in the background? It wasn't. And Mason was like, Dad, what would you do if it was? I'm like, I would be super excited. That's what. But no, it's just a starship. And the Pikes come out and we're going to go to war. And Fett's like, all right. Yeah. I mean, that's not, of course, verbatim by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't transcribe it. But that is a sense. So then you start to put pieces together and think, is Boba Fett, is his whole motivation after he gets his armor to get revenge on the Pikes for what they did to the Tuskens? Or what? That's kind of where I'm at now. But we've got a few more episodes to sort of see what happens. Anything you want to say about the end of the episode before we wrap things up?
Really interesting things to think about there. That's not a connection that I'd made, so I appreciate that. You know what? Okay, two things. Number one, I really love your image and your thoughts about the ship flying over and landing. I have those feelings a lot. And I can totally see why you would have that. For me, it was when, I'm going to mess this up really bad. It's the episode in The Mandalorian when he's on never mind. It's when the Imperial, they have to hijack the Imperial ship. And when that Imperial ship is leaving like the harbor area and it can't rise real fast and it's taking off, that's my moment where I had that feeling.
Oh,
I
fun.
I totally can feel that for you and that Tatooine scene. So not story-wise, but this is just directing and episode-wise. This is the second Boba Fett episode that ended way faster than I really expected it to. Last week was the quickest 50 minutes of Star Wars that I may have ever experienced. This one, I knew it was over because of the way it ended, and they have that pause, and then they go back to the credits. But I was not ready for that. I really thought there was more for this episode to tell, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like it's like a middle piece that you have to get from A to B, but I wanted something else. And so I think that's why I gave it the solid B, is because I felt sort of like gypped of, well, no, give me something else. And by the way, something story-wise I wanted to mention was when those Pikes come walking off that ship, they are just so intimidating looking with those helmet masks. And I thought they were so nasty on Kessel with those, where their air things were dripping like that yellow poison from the condensation of the air. And just like, that is the image when I think of Pikes, that's the image I have. And so when they come walking off, they're sort of like marching in a way off. I mean, they don't have lines or anything, but you're like, this is bad. This is bad news for Tatooine and for Mos Espa. And then the last thought I had was when Boba Fett says, I wish I could remember exactly what he says. He says something like, then we'll be ready for war. We're prepared for war. Something like that. I thought his two Gamorreans, his biker gang, and he and Fennec, what don't we know yet? Or what does he have up his sleeve? Because you're not going to fight, the Pikes with, 6-7 people. So he's got something else up his sleeve, or an idea that he's working on.
It's going to be fun. Again, a very fascinating episode with some jaw-dropping moments. The threat of Black Chrysanthemum being able to be actualized in live action was great. The shock of the Rancor, the heartbreak of the loss of the Tusken village, and then the question of where are we going now? I love not knowing. I will certainly be watching it next Wednesday as early as possible, and I'm looking forward to talking about it with you next week, of course, Tom, and hear what all of you think listening right now. Please let us know in the CWK Cafe.
Yes.
Well, you thought about the third chapter in the book of Boba Fett, and be honest, again, critical thinking and intellectual honesty. I know the weeds are a little thick now with it's pretty much all or nothing commentary. What I'm happy about with Coffee with Kenobi, it's always been my goal from day one, is you don't have to like everything, but you can find silver linings and everything. And how do you articulate, where can we learn from each other about what works and what didn't work? I think there's real value in honest criticism, intellectual honesty, critical thinking. So I appreciate, Tom, that we were able to do this here together and hear from our Coffee with Kenobi friends as well.
Oh, and I mean, you have built that so solidly, and it's a testament to you and your ethics of storytelling. So I really like that, and I always look at it as it's conversation for growth. We don't have to agree, but when we share those ideas, it's not we're not saying it to be right or to say someone's wrong. We say it to grow. And so it's a great culture and a community that Coffee with Kenobi has. I love being a part of it and having these conversations with you, and then hopping into social media to see what everyone else thinks as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate that. And again, be sure to go to the CWK Cafe, www.coffeewithkenobi.com/CWK Cafe, to share your thoughts, comments, and opinions on the book of Boba Fett. Not only this episode, but subsequent ones, the series overall. So much more to come. On behalf of myself and Tom Gross, thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you next time.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.